What's up, guys, and welcome back to TTC. Um, we got an interesting one. I just started thinking about what the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing with the Urban Meyer situation, and I thought I'd talk about it. This is nuts that this guy keeps finding himself into so much trouble into his NFL career, and I thought I'd just kind of dive into it, kind of break down what I'm seeing and what I think. As always, leave a like down below, comment, subscribe, whatever you guys feel like. Thanks for tuning in. But we're going to jump right into this. So, my first point with the Jacksonville Jaguars obviously has to be the video that just came out of Urban Meyer. First of all, a coach leaves with his team to go back to the facility every time after a game, especially after a loss, that puts you at 0-4. You don't go to the bars out after and see old friends in Ohio. That was a ridiculous excuse, only to find out that he's there to dance with young girls or whatever, which was another thing that just makes me just so boggled that this guy thinks that he can come back and coach an NFL team after that or gain the trust of a locker room. I think is very crazy. And if he does, props to him, because that's just nuts. But basically, I wanted to just break down his past and the hire of this guy over other candidates like Eric Bieniemy from the Kansas City Chiefs, or other successful guys within the Nick Sirianni with the Eagles. He's looking like a pretty good candidate because the offense for the Eagles is looking pretty good with a quarterback that I don't really love with Jalen Hurts. So, but that's regardless. That's here nor there. But let's just run down Urban Meyer's career collegiately, because obviously that's the only place he's been before the NFL. In his time at Florida, 31 of his players in 6 years as the coach for the Florida Gators were arrested, some misdemeanors, some serious. And when he leaves Florida, there's an expose written called How Urban Meyer Broke Florida Football. Everyone talks about that he had favorites in the locker room, with Tim Tebow obviously being an obvious one, given the obvious that he just got an opportunity to be a tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars when he gets his first head coaching job. Very, very telling right there, I think. But also they say that he built a really toxic culture in that locker room and, basically left before everything went horribly wrong, which is true. In years since, they had some pretty bad times, and they actually got picked back up lately, but for 7 years, the Florida Gators weren't the same once he left. When he went to Ohio State, he obviously saw success, but obviously Ohio State gets very high recruits every year. I think that, props where props are due. He won quite a bit at Ohio State, but he had the number one recruiting class like every year. Same thing when he was with the Florida Gators. But I've heard same thing, favorites when he was with Ohio State, picking favorites in the locker room and it being a major problem. And then when he comes to the NFL afterwards, I think it's interesting that they hire him instead of another guy who's been well established in the NFL, especially when you're bringing him to a team where you're basically saying, we're going to draft a rookie quarterback and we're going to blow up everything else around him. They traded their first-round pick from a year ago or 2 years ago in C.J. Henderson. There's no one on the O-line. There's no one on defense. They traded Joe Schobert to the Steelers. I'm just confused as to how you think that this guy coming from a team with, the second-best roster in college football to a team with the worst roster in the NFL, how you expect him to be successful with a rookie quarterback who's never played at this level before. And he's never schemed for an NFL game before. So I just think that it's like, Shad Khan, the owner for the Jaguars, I think that he's done a really good job, making the brand. Their stadium's beautiful. The mascot's awesome. He does a bunch of stuff, and I'm sure there's really good revenue. Sell a bunch of tickets, but if there's a plan to win, it's obviously not in place yet, in my opinion. I think that I don't know where he's going with this. You got to have a ton of first-round picks going forward, which they haven't really loaded up on a lot of mid-round picks. But unless you're a great drafting team, which the Jaguars aren't, at least historically, except for the, first-round picks that they hit on with Jalen Ramsey. Other than that, it's not like they hit superstars every year in the mid-round. So they're going to have to make a lot of moves in free agency, hope that they can sell on the no income tax in Florida. But other than that, I don't know where he thinks that this team is going to go besides, a downturn for a guy who could be a great quarterback in the NFL and Trevor Lawrence and just ruining that career. I wanted to compare, what the Jags are doing to other teams that have struggled in the past and are now trying to build forward, build up to go to the future. I wanted to start with the Detroit Lions with their hire of Dan Campbell. Their first first-round draft pick when they brought him in was Penei Sewell, so they instantly went for the O-line. They brought in Jared Goff, and honestly, he doesn't look bad. The offense is decimated. The defense is playing better than it should be with the guys they have on the roster. So the coach is making a difference. This guy's driving this team to want to win. But obviously they haven't won yet. That team is really bad as far as the roster goes, but they're going to build from there. So I think they're making the right steps, and I think they brought in the right guy to coach, but it's not like they drafted a quarterback at that point to fail. Basically, I think that shows what a team should be doing. Drafting the team and then putting the quarterback into that roster to win games. Similar to what the Panthers are doing right now. They brought in Matt Rule. They've built up that defense to be a great unit, especially bringing in Gilmore, as the news just broke today, and drafting J.C. Horn. That defense can carry a young quarterback over some losses, like what happened with, a young Tom Brady, a young Ben Roethlisberger, to bring them to the playoffs so he can, gain some confidence. I think that is what is really impressive, especially with the hire of Matt Rule. Brought Temple to back-to-back conference championships and won their first in 50 years with him. And then he went to Baylor, brought them from a 1-11 team to an 11-1 team before he got brought to the NFL by the Carolina Panthers. I thought he was a great hire. If you're going to take someone out of college, let them have a little NFL experience. He was an offensive line coach in the NFL for a few years with the Giants, I'm pretty sure. I thought he was a really good hire to lead a team because, he means business. He doesn't have a lot of controversy. But I guess if the Jaguars want to sell tickets, Urban Meyer's the guy. It makes sense. Bring in the Ohio State coach, draft Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson. It adds up. And then finally, another example of what you should be doing is the Cleveland Browns. Horrible for years. Horrible is an understatement. They drafted Baker Mayfield a little early, went through a bunch of head coaches. They finally get their guy in Stefanski, who they got from another NFL team who had success with the Vikings underneath Mike Zimmer for all those years, another good head coach. So he learned from one of the best, and now he's leading this team to a serious playoff push. So I think there's just a certain way to do things that, other owners get, and something that Shad Khan is not getting, because if he wants to sell tickets, he's doing the right thing. If he wants to win games, I don't know if it's the right thing to do. That's all I got for today. Tune in next time, guys, and thanks for tuning in.